OK, let's talk about Victoria. As we brought you at this time last night, both from the Premier and Victoria's Chief Medical Officer, they warned the numbers would go up again before they headed down. The gasps and alarm over 288 cases is a bit too much. This is a state of more than 6 million people conducting upwards of 30,000 tests a day at the moment. And this is not 288 sick people. This is 288 infections. We know 98 or 99% of infections will be mild. There are still only a dozen people in critical care beds from the virus in Victoria. We worry about those people. We want them to pull through, of course. But remember what we're dealing with here and what the national aims were. Take yourself back 3 months. Imagine offering the National Cabinet then a situation where there were only a few dozen people in hospital, a dozen in acute care, and fewer than 300 new cases in a day. We would have taken that in a heartbeat. Now, yes, let's hope Victoria can push the curve down again, but we shouldn't judge the situation based on unrealistic expectations. And we do need to remember we will need to be careful about social distancing and hygiene for the foreseeable future.
We'll do everything we can to ensure the protections are in place should those things occur, but the community also has a role to maintain their discipline when it comes to social distancing and the things that are attendant to that. And that is also true, particularly for the younger population.
Victorian authorities are again being super heavy-handed in dealing with this. 60 people have already been fined after the lockdown was imposed again this week, 20 of them when police followed up a large order of KFC to find a party. They handed out finger-licking fines, all right. Masks are now being recommended, as we mentioned yesterday, and Australia is effectively halving the number of people coming back into the country to relieve pressure on quarantine processing. And that's where Victoria let the side down, of course. It was the failure of the Andrews government to keep its quarantine secure that led to these outbreaks in Victoria. And while there have been questions about a lack of accountability on this in Melbourne, the National Cabinet has now agreed to a national review of quarantine measures.
Again, is an important step in providing reassurance and making sure that as we look into each of the states and territories and how they're managing their quarantine, that it is meeting the standards that the AHPPC have advised upon.
That inquiry could be interesting politically for the Victorian government. But whatever breaches have occurred, the whole country needs to know immediately so these mistakes are not repeated. Authorities have now closed a hotel in the Sydney suburb of Casula after a man drove from Victoria and tested positive and possibly has passed the infection on to at least one other person at that hospital.